you're a great employee, you don't want to be in a business where you know that leadership is already, saying the last one to leave, turn off the lights, right?
Mhm.
We are gone, we are already planning the next step, the whole
Right.
energy. If you believe in energy, the whole energy changes. And of course, the quality of care changes. So basically, what you're saying, Jill, is that if you are a patient, you should definitely ask yourself and research and know, is there that practice owned by a dentist or is that practice owned by a corporation? And
Right.
that should be a factor to consider when choosing a dentist. Is that correct?
I think so. I think it should be, especially being owned by non-dentists or private equity.
And three, two, one, and we are back live with Coffee Break with Coachman, me and Kirk Barrett once again, bringing the best minds in the dental business. And today we have an important topic: how to stay independent as a dentist. And if you feel like freedom is something important to you, how to fight against the trend of DSOs. We're going to talk with Jill Tanzi that started a movement to join forces around all the doctors that have the same mindset and want to help each other to empower their position. We are today with Dr. Jill Tanzi that I met in a DSD Day course in Boston. Actually, she co-hosted the event. She helped us bringing her group and helping us bring people to attend the DSD Day. And it was a great surprise from both sides because she started this movement to empower doctors that are not comfortable with what is happening with DSOs and how this movement is not patient centered, right?
Mhm.
And so I was super, extremely surprised with everything that she was doing to empower this movement. And on the other hand, I think she was kind of surprised when she was sitting there and watching the DSD Day content and realizing that actually DSD is just a bunch of strategies to keep your freedom, to empower your privately owned practice to compete against this trend, right? And enjoy the journey. So thank you so much, Jill Tanzit, for joining us today here. And we're going to have precious minutes here to discuss this topic that I think is in the mind of every dentist. Kirk, we talked about the two hottest topics in dentistry today. You said burnout and finding and keeping staff. But I would add
Yes.
a third one: burnout, finding and keeping staff, and deciding what is my exit strategy. Should I sell now? Should I keep? What do I do? Right? So, Jill, this topic is amazing. Thank you so much for joining. Please say hello to our community.
Hi, I'm Jill Tanzi. I'm a general dentist. I've been practicing for about 24 years, and I've owned for almost 21 years a general dentist office, a group practice with 4 general dentists and a periodontist. And we are an out-of-network practice as of a few years ago. So I'm very for private practice. Everything Dr. Coachman says about DSD. We really believe in customer service, and we want our organization to educate dentists about why staying independent is important, and also the general public why they should see an independent dentist.
That's a great point. We're gonna try to compare the pros and cons here,
Mhm.
and I want to start by asking, when was the moment that you realized something was going on in dentistry that you didn't agree with, right? What was that moment, and what were the things that you didn't agree with?
So it actually started out in 2017 in Massachusetts. The largest dental insurer, which we all participated with at the time, gave us these crazy contracts that came out saying you have to sign, we're going to lower your reimbursement 30%. And everyone panicked in the state. And a bunch of dentists came together and we thought, let's see what we could do. What can we do? Can we hire an attorney? Can we talk to our legislators? Something seems wrong in this situation. And we really didn't feel like we had the support of our dental organization in our state. So we worked for a couple of years and we testified against insurance companies, and we made a little bit of progress, but we found out over all these years that fighting insurance companies is probably not really worth our time. And that was how this whole thing started. And it brought a lot of dentists together in our state. And we realized that we just needed our own voice for private practice. Because the dental organizations represent all dentists, whether you're in academics or you're working for an insurance company or you're working in corporate, everyone pretty much has the same representation. And it's really hard to represent someone well when you're representing opposing forces or people that have different interests.
And what do you think are the biggest threats that you see with this trend, right? So then you started to realize that
Yeah, so we were thinking about insurance, but more and more we started watching medicine, who has the same problems. And in the United States, in medicine, things started to go corporate 30 years ago, with hospitals first and then private equity. And we all know that the experience we feel as patients, because we're all patients, um, has changed. Maybe the doctor only spends 15 minutes with you, or you feel like you're getting bounced around to different specialists. Things have really changed here, and we're starting to see the same things in dentistry. So we should be looking at medicine to see, are they going to try to solve this problem? What are they doing now? And what have other doctors done in the past? There's different branches of medicine, and some have been able to resist some of the changes. So there's a lot that we can learn from medicine. And one thing that I think a lot of us really believe in is that practices should be owned and controlled by doctors in medicine and in dentistry.
That's a big statement. It goes against everything that is happening in both worlds.
Mhm.
But I think that you mentioned before we even started to record something that I think is important. The main number one shift is centering on the patient. Of course, DSOs are smart. Investors are smart. They know that they need to deliver some kind of quality to actually survive. Nobody's dumb, right? But there's a core shift on the mindset of the whole business. You know, one thing is patient first always, and that's the natural behavior of a dentist. 90% of every ethical good dentist, will always put the patient first. And as soon as a business is taking over, we know that it doesn't matter how good the clinician is. Once at the end of the day, the patient comes slight below the revenue and the numbers, everything shifts, right?
Mhm.
Key components of the whole process, they shift. So how can you explain from your perspective this shift of being patient-centered and not being patient-centered?
Well, I think with corporate dentistry, you said it, it's you're putting the patient in a second position when they should always be in the first position. But you can't really blame so much private equity or corporations. That's what they're trained to do.
Uh-huh.
They're trained to make
That's
money,
true.
right?
That's
That's their
true.
goal, is to make
Uh-huh.
money. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure we need to make a living too,
Uh-huh.
but we're coming at it from a different angle. We're trying to provide a service. They're trying to say, how much can I grow this business and sell it for higher multiple? I think that when we set up laws in different states, most states say that a dentist, a professional, needs to own a professional business. Like an electrician has to own an electrical business. A dentist has to own a dentist's office. But somehow there's ways around these laws,
Mhm.
and they've been taking advantage of professional corporations that need to be owned
So
by
you
professionals.
think that having a law that makes it mandatory for only dentists to own dental clinics could be a great
Well, it
idea?
exists.
Yeah.
It already exists. It's just
Right.
nobody's
One that
following.
cannot be banned.
Right,
One,
right.
yeah.
I think so.
I think that that probably would, from one day to the next day, already change the quality of care because we see happening. You know, once the dentist, good dentist, ethical dentist, worked hard after 15, 20 years, sold the practice to a DSO, next day, motivation and care for details just drops a little bit, right? And then after 6 months, it drops a little bit more. And I see many times these dentists that just sold and they are stuck with that practice for 3 to 5 years. They have to
Mhm,
keep working there. They already have thinking about something else. Their head and focus is not 100% there at the moment. They're already thinking about how they're going to open a new office once the non-compete finishes. They're already thinking about all the things that they're going to do different on the new practice or even change businesses, do others
mhm.
something else with their money. So
Yeah.
we see that even though you have an ethical clinician, the fact that that thing happened already changes the quality of care. Do you agree with that?
I agree. And I actually worked for a DSO when I graduated from dental school. And I saw the practice. I joined it right after the purchase. And I
Hmm.
saw the owners thinking about how are they going to get out of this? And I saw them lose really great staff members. So I saw this really early on. So I know that I didn't want to do it again, but it was a way for me to get a full-time job because I was working in all different clinics when I
Mhm.
first
Of
started.
course, of course. But if you're a great employee, you don't want to be in a business where you know that leadership is already, saying the last one to leave, turn off the lights, right?
Mhm.
We are gone, we are already planning the next step, the whole
Right.
energy. If you believe in energy, the whole energy changes. And of course, the quality of care changes. So basically, what you're saying, Jill, is that if you are a patient, you should definitely ask yourself and research and know, is there that practice owned by a dentist or is that practice owned by a corporation? And
Right.
that should be a factor to consider when choosing a dentist. Is that correct?
I think so. I think it should be, especially being owned by non-dentists or private equity, or maybe dentists own a large amount of practices, but they can't really be involved. They're like absentee owners. That can
Mhm.
be a problem too, depending on how they're running things.
I said something on the course. I'm sure you agree. I said quality dentistry, and I truly believe. And the more I know about dentistry, the more I believe in this. Quality dentistry is not scalable. Actually,
Mhm.
when you choose healthcare in college, you decide you want to be a physician, you want to be a dentist. You are committing to a profession that will give you a great lifestyle but will not make you a billionaire. If you want to be a billionaire, you find something else, because it's a conflict of interest. And you need to understand that when you achieve the peak of your profession and you're delivering the best quality, that's when the temptation comes for you to scale, multiply. And I'm not judging. I'm not judging.
Mhm.
People open second, third location, hire new associates, they grow. Everybody should be free to do whatever they want, but the quality will drop, period. Right?
Mhm.
Period. That's my opinion.
Well, yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to run one business. I can't imagine running 5 of my offices. It'd be really
Then
difficult.
imagine running 100, like DSOs are
Yeah.
running 100 with clinicians that are not having many times skin in the game.
Right, because a lot of people that wanna work for DSOs, they say, "Well, I don't wanna run the business. I just wanna punch in and punch out at the end of the day."
Mhm.
But dentistry is a career where you really shouldn't have that mindset. I believe
Mhm.
that you're a dentist, you should probably be thinking about dentistry a lot of the time, unfortunately, because you're a professional, you're a doctor. It's
And you
not
should enjoy
something
it.
that
Yeah.
it's not like working at Dunkin' Donuts, you know, it's you're
Yeah.
a professional.
Yeah.
Mm.
Can I add a thought here too?
Yeah.
I think, Jill, what you're doing is amazing. I really do. And I think we've needed this for a long time. I love this profession. And if anyone's listening to this, the cool thing to understand is that dentistry it's a road paved with gold. And let me explain. Like you can come out, you can practice however you want. You can choose your patient base, you can choose your hours. It gives you the freedom of choice, and you can make as much money up to a certain point, just like you said, Christian. And I don't think we should get upset that insurances are getting involved and DSOs are getting involved. It is what it is. It's such a fruitful business. I mean, if you had $1 billion, Jill and Christian, you had $1 billion, and we wanted to make 2 billion each, we'd say, what do we want to invest in? It'd be a no-brainer, like dental practices. Like they're wildly profitable. It's the same business. And currently in the world right now, as of 2024, the dental services market is $475 billion. Every expert agrees it'll be $700 billion by 2032. That's a 47% increase. In the United States, that constitutes $164 billion. So it's an industry that's going to continue to grow, and where the private clinician can sit here and go, listen, I have choices. You don't have, it's not all going that way. You can set up shop and create what you want and be highly profitable and make the patient first and choose your hours. And I think that's the piece that's missing. Jill, what you're doing is awesome, but there's no money in private care speaking. A private care dentist doesn't fly to a meeting in Georgia and say, hey, I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm going to teach you how to create a private practice because I did it for 30 years. And I'm hoping you can too. You know, anybody that's done that is golfing on the weekend or attending a DSD course. Do you know what I mean? They're not flying around the country to teach people how to do this. They're enjoying their lives. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So I don't even know if there's a question in there, but like, I think the point is that what we want dentists to do is know that you have a choice and you don't have to sell. You don't. There's actually so much opportunity.
I think that the point is that we are not here to judge. We are here discussing a movement that can help the ones that want to keep that model going for a little longer, right?
Yeah, maybe they're
Enjoy.
struggling where they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with staff. They don't
Yeah.
know how to stay independent. They don't know what to do with insurance. There's so many factors to being a successful private practice owner.
So
Uh,
let's start with that question, Jill. Why selling your practice? What are the main factors that make a dentist say, I'm done with this? Whatever
too
you give
many
me.
too many things to deal with as a practice owner. So staffing, um, not just staffing your office, but dealing with staff,
Mhm.
um, insurance reimbursements. Those are the big ones right
Marketing,
now, right?
doing marketing, lead
Yeah, all
generation,
the other little things. But
and
I
are,
think what
yeah.
people need to realize is you don't have to do all those things if you're an owner. You
Mhm.
can have an office manager, you can do outsourcing. There's a lot of solutions to keep your practice going and giving yourself a break and having, you know, the right
Mhm.
frame of mind. You can't expect to do everything yourself. And it's so important to know as a business owner.
So what are the things that your group, your movement is doing to try to help doctors that are like, I'm tired, I'm done with this.
Mhm.
If I get an offer, I'm out, and giving some light at the end of the tunnel for these people, and making them start to enjoy the process to run their practice
Right.
for longer.
So what we want to do is, well, first, the basic thing we're doing is just our Facebook page where people can bounce ideas off of each other. We can bring
Follow.
in different podcasts like this where we can just post it and they can watch it. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of education that way. But our paid members have access to any of our symposiums online. We're going to be putting them all on our website. Um, you know, different job boards, like we're just going to have a lot of resources on that website, and we have an annual symposium.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and they're also able to contact any of us to discuss their problems. So it's just a big community. And we can bring a lot of resources in and ideas for private practice owners. And we're trying just to focus on that. We don't want to be so focused on trying to battle anyone legislatively anymore, because you can do that and you can have some small successes, but you really need to work on your own business to see the fruits of your labor, I think.
Yeah. I think that's a great focus. Instead of focusing, trying to fight and bring down the other side, is to empower your side, empower your strategy, right? And make it successful regardless. Because as Kirk said, dentistry is so generous. There's space for absolutely everything. I do believe that one important point is education for the patients, right? On this matter, that they need to understand that there are some good quality practice out there that are privately owned by the dentist that is there every single day. There are some practice that are not DSO yet, but a dentist that owns a couple of locations is not 100% all the time there. Then you have practices that are part of a small DSO that don't look like DSO practices. They keep the branding as if they were private, right? Then you have practices that are part of a big DSO that still keep their individual branding that looks like private. And then you have the McDonald's, that everything is branded, low level, whatever. So you have all these type of practices nowadays. And if I was a patient, I would definitely try to understand all these different type of practices and choose the one that makes more sense to me.
So that's one of our goals for the next year, is to grow our organization, but also all of our members are listed on our website and they have access to using our logo. So we're going to try to create some brand recognition in the public. It may be difficult, but I think with all of our paid members and what we can do with social media and also other types of advertising, we could probably bring some light to the fact that, hey, maybe you should ask or, maybe seek out an independent dentist.
Yeah. No, you can definitely do that, because the power of DSO is that they have many practices under the same roof. Now, if you have an organization that brings 50 practices, 100 practices, 200 practices, even though are 200 independent businesses, you can have the same power,
Totally.
you can have the same purchasing power.
And a
You can
lot of
have
people
the
worry
same,
about the purchasing power, right?
yeah,
I always hear that's like a common thing.
yeah.
And we want to do that. We want to get deals for our members.
Mhm.
But when you look at your profit and loss statement, your supplies is usually a very small percentage. And people get so focused in on that number.
Uh-huh.
And it's great if you can save a percent or two, but
Mhm.
where you're really spending your money is staff.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
a huge number.
100%.
Well, and I would argue, Jill, because you're on the right path. I totally agree with you. Where you're spending the most money is on your team, but where you're losing the most money, the average practice that participates with PPOs in the United
Oh,
States
yeah.
writes off 42%. So you're not even collecting half of the money you're supposed to collect. And so that just impacts your costs. And if you
Totally.
just shrank that by 50%, you'd have that much more money to play
No,
with.
I
So
saw that in my own office, like all my overhead percentages went down when I got out of network. So it was just like a magic overnight.
But another thing that you can do when you get 100 to 100 people, clinics around or practices around a movement like this, is that you start to get the same marketing power that DSOs have, right? So you start to generate a combined communication strategy, a combined branding strategy, a combined direct to consumer strategy. You start to play Premier League when it comes to speaking to the final consumer, right? So I think that's definitely something that you guys should explore.
Yeah, we
And
are.
for that,
This is what we're working on.
uh
Sure.
no, that's great. And we know that uh, if I'm a patient and I'm looking at this and I'm seeing an advertisement from a DSO, and then I'm seeing an advertisement from a group of independent dentists, which advertisement should I trust more, right? It's pretty obvious, right? It's pretty obvious. So I think that actually the whole world in many different businesses are kind of moving back to that, right? We are
I
not
think so.
trusting.
Shop local,
Yeah,
shop
yeah,
in your
exactly,
community. Yeah.
exactly. We don't trust the pharmaceuticals anymore. We don't trust the food industry anymore. We don't
Mm.
trust the media industry anymore. And everybody's going back to privately owned, smaller, local, trusted voices and people and professionals, right? So your movement is spot on, bringing dentistry into that movement as well. So another question. So let's say we want to convince dentists to join, we want to convince dentists to stay independent, what are the things that come to your mind, the best benefits from staying as an owner?
Well, I think staying as an owner just gives you more control overall of your life. I know everyone will eventually retire, but for the future of dentistry, I believe we should try to sell to other dentists and keep as many practices as independent as possible. This is great for the consumer, great for patients. We know this from medicine. We already know that. Um, Now I forgot your question again.
No,
Well, just the
if you have a friend, a colleague that is saying,
Yeah.
I got this offer, I'm gonna sell my practice to this DSO, and you're no, don't do that. You know,
Yeah.
what arguments would you use to convince this person to stay independent? You mentioned one, freedom, of course, is the obvious one. You said, look, we can always find the opportunity to sell to another dentist.
Right.
Uh, I think there's a very
I think
strong
there's
ethical.
two sides to that story, because there's always the dentist that wants to retire, and then there's also the dentist that maybe they deciding they want to give up ownership because they don't want to deal with the stresses of ownership anymore. So, and I think those are two different people.
yeah.
I don't know if you
I
agree, but
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the bigger thing I always think of this is like, I love the country that I live in, and it doesn't need more aid or more help. It needs entrepreneurs that know how to grow businesses, hire people, create economies. And so there's a big picture in there. And I think, if you came into this profession, it's a very, it's a very noble profession. You're always looking at the generation behind you. You want to leave it in a better condition. And I think you're right, is when we can help people grow businesses. And here's another thing, if you're a dentist listening, you don't need 4,000 patients. If you are you only need 12, 1,300 patients. There's 331 million people in the United States. You don't need all of them, you know? So
right.
I think once you get your brain around the clarity of what I need in order to support the business that I have, and Jill, you probably see this all the time. It's like, I don't want to be everyone's dentist. It's okay if people want to go other places. And I think helping dentists navigate some of those challenges, it's a big one.
Yeah,
Right. So for the owner that's stressed out and they're like, well, I'm just gonna sell and I'm gonna work for someone, whether it's a DSO or work in another private practice, you may want to think twice, because there's definitely solutions to staying independent, and it's better for everyone if you do stay independent.
if you
I believe.
succeed
Yeah.
as an independent, right? Because
Yeah.
some people just don't know how to succeed or having a hard time
Hmm.
to keep a good quality of living and running their business. So the key is to succeed first, succeed as a clinic owner, not only as a clinician. We need more clinicians that are becoming masters on practice management, right? Leaders of their team. So we have great clinicians. We are professionals clinically, but we are amateurs running our practices. And
Hmm.
that generates frustration that makes people say, I want to sell my practice. I just want to be a clinician. The problem is that as soon as we sell and we are just clinicians, we lose freedom. With freedom lost, we lose motivation, and then the attention for details and the quality is not the same, and you have that sequence of factors that drop the quality towards the patient. Another factor
Right.
that I think is important. So we need leaders, clinicians that are leaders and know how to run a healthy practice, so they are not that stressed, less stress. And the other thing that I think is important, Kirk, is that we need dentists to know what to do with their profits while they still own their practice. Because if they are smart managing their money during the 10, 20 years that they're very productive, and they're diversifying and they're starting to get some passive income, dentistry is such a beautiful, noble thing. As you said, it can become almost like a hobby. And you want to have a hobby that you can control, right? Like my father. My father, doing dentistry for him is a hobby, right? And he loves the fact that he still is owning his practice till today, right? And the process, and he has freedom to bring the people that he likes. But this is only possible if you enjoy the journey, and if you diversify, so you don't feel the tension and the pressure to cash out, right? That temptation, I need to cash out. Once you're making money and investing, it's like a business owner that has a successful business. He gets an offer and he's like, I'm not going to sell my business. This is running smooth, and I'm making decent profit. I'm reinvesting. I'm diversifying. I'm having fun. I'm doing what I love, and I'm very proud of this. I'm going to leave a much better legacy behind me, and I can do this forever. You know.
Yeah,
if you're having troubles and you push a little harder, and you also find the solutions to your problems, you can be in that situation where it's just running very smoothly. My practice runs very smoothly, and it didn't start out that way, but everyone needs to work at it, and you have to inform yourself, educate yourself, and finding groups like these is important to your journey, I believe.
Totally agree. Can I add one thing to what you both said? Kristen, I tell dental students this, like, if you're going to practice for 3 decades, you're going to have anywhere between 10 and $40 million come in and out of your business. I mean, if 30 years, that's how much cash is going to come into your business. All you have to do is set up a system that a little sliver of it goes this way, and you learn how to pay taxes the other way and all of your expenses. And that's plenty of money. If it doubles every 7 years, you're so wealthy at the end of 15 to 20 years that you now have options and you don't feel overwhelmed. So you don't have to chase anything. It's just setting it up and having that clarity early on.
As soon as we realize that as a practice owner, we need to stop and build a plan as soon as we can, right? Build a plan so we don't have to just sell because we are desperate, right? That's the problem. And that's what investors are taking advantage of, because they see great clinicians that worked hard and built an amazing clientele, reputation, and burned out. And that's when they jump in and they say, look, this is for you, and we're going to take over from now on, and you're just going to enjoy dentistry.
And that's not always what happens either with the DSO offers, and you don't hear about it because clinicians sign non-disclosure agreements. So sometimes they're just paying you what you would have made on your own if you had just stayed an owner for those years, and now you've lost all your equity. So you have to be really careful.
Usually, I have to tell you, usually people that sold, I don't see them coming to me and saying, I'm having so much fun doing dentistry now. Usually that's not what happens, right? It's what people think it's going to happen. It's funny, but it usually doesn't happen. You know, what they say is like, I'm happy because I don't have the pressure to run, and I'm having more fun with my life, right? Or I'm doing something else with my money. And if you're smart, you can also do great things with your money after you sell to a DSO. Again, nothing wrong with that. But saying I just sold to a DSO and I'm having more fun practicing as a dentist in the same practice that used to be mine, that's something that I usually don't hear.
Right. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I haven't either. They mostly describe, and I don't care anymore. The network's not going to censor us. Most people describe it as a prison sentence. Yeah, I got 4 more months before I get out of it.
Celebrating.
Counting the days, so you're done.
They're counting the days. They come to me and say, I have 1 more year and I'm free. I say,
right.
This was
Now,
supposed to be good.
now the other thing too is there's a lot of wolf in sheep's clothing. So here in the United States, you hear a lot of ads. Are you tired of running a practice? Are you tired of dealing with team problems? Are you tired of dealing with insurances? Are you tired of dealing with difficult patients? Well, who's going to say no to any of that? Well, sell your practice to us. You can sell 51% of your practice or 90% of your practice to us, and we'll take all those problems away. And you can just go back to being a dentist. Have you heard that ad yet? Like everybody's, it's a perfect ad. What you don't know is you were working 3.5 days a week and 4 days a week and enjoying your life. And now you just sold and you were leaving at 4 o'clock. And now I own your practice. And so I know you like to leave at 4 before. You're not doing that anymore. You didn't work Saturdays. You're working Saturday now. I have the power to tell you all that's gone now. Now, some people are smart. They sell with contingencies and say, I'm not doing that. But like, you got to be careful what you sell to. And so I don't know.
But it's funny because they don't offer, look, if you say, okay, I want to sell just 30%. They say, no.
Why would I buy 30% of your business?
It's
Now I'm just a
51 to
passive
90.
investor. I want to
51 to
own the
90.
whole thing.
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
to tell you what to do if I
We
own your
want to keep
business.
we want to keep you with 10% so you feel like you're the owner, but you don't make the calls anymore.
Mhm.
True.
You can tell, no, the practice is mine. So the marketing is there. You know, the patient comes and, no, this is
Right.
my practice. I'm the dentist, my practice. How much percentage you have? Oh, 10%. Oh, corporate has 90.
Right.
So they make the calls. That is what we call financially driven diagnosis. That's what we see in dentistry, financially driven diagnosis, financially driven treatment plans, financially driven execution, financially driven material selection, right?
Mhm.
Uh, my whole life as a technician, I've been dealing with dentists, and dentists are generally usually extremely ethical. They're like, I want to use the best, period. I want to use the best. I want to do the best. I have fun. I'm proud. I bought this equipment brand new, was 3 times more expensive than the second one that was pretty good, but this one was better. And I bought
Yeah.
the best. These are dentists. When they own their practice, they're like buying the best because it's just fun. They love it and they love to do the best, right? And that's what you lose
Yeah.
when you're not in charge anymore.
And Christian, you're getting me fired up now. And Jill, I'm sure you could resonate with this. And Christian, like if you're listening to this podcast, you actually care about your profession on some level. Like you're not just listening to see if you can make a few extra bucks. You like your stuff the way you like it. You
Yeah.
built a business so that you could do it your way. You like your crowns the way you like it. And so I said this before we hit the go button. I'm virtually unemployable. I couldn't work for another human being. You know, I like it. And so I think a big part of any dentist journey is they want to do it their way. And
Mhm.
it's bigger than money. You give that heart away to someone when you go, you now own my business. Just tell me what to do.
You know, another big one is your choice of lab, choosing your own lab. So you have a relationship with your lab for 15 years. The lab is expensive, but you have an amazing workflow and they deliver great quality. It's a problem, you know. Once corporate comes in, they're like, why? There's one in town here, 30% cheaper, you know, that's it. You have to adapt, you know. It's a little bit worse. No, we're gonna make that work, you know, and then suddenly you lose that relationship with the lab that you preciously build the communication process, the back and
Mhm.
forth, and you know the details on how to make the case work better because of that collaboration. And suddenly you don't have that freedom anymore.
Yeah. So I want to do this because Jill, I want to know so much about your. I could see us doing follow-up things on actual components of what you do. I want you to tell our listeners where to go and join and find out more. But before we do that, Christian, I'd love for you to give some final thoughts. And then Jill, I'd love for you to give some final thoughts.
Look, my final thought is a little, actually, I mentioned to you guys, I had this slide that I show in my lecture where I list the competitive advantages of a dental clinic that is owned by a corporation, because they are competitive advantages there, and we need to acknowledge it. We need to understand, you know, if you want to be more competitive, if you want to survive, you need to understand what you're competing with, you know, and you need to understand what are the things that they have that you don't. But also, you need to understand what are the advantages that you have as an independent great dentist. Things that it doesn't matter how much money a corporation have, they will never have the same way you have. And instead of trying to compete on the things that they are much better than us, it's much smarter to empower, leverage, and amplify the things that we are much better than them, right? This is a smart way to compete. You know, David and Goliath. You need to focus on those things that you are better, and make sure that your community sees that. So, for example, if you're part of a DSO, of course, you're going to have a better marketing know-how and marketing budget. Now, if you're part of groups like the one that Tanzi is starting, you can even compete on that, right? But they usually have better management business expertise. Of course, they've been running huge corporations. You know, running a practice is easy for them. They have the systems, they have technologies, they have the platforms, they have everything to spend less money and manage with more efficiency. They can invest, you know, on strategies and resources more than an independent dentist usually can. Buying power, as we commented, even though buying power is not as big as people think, it's still an advantage, unless you're part of a group that allows you the same type of competitive advantage. That's why groups like yours should also help people with that. Customer support know-how, that's a big one. These corporations, they own 5-star hotels, they own spas, they know how to treat people, they know how to exceed expectations professionally, consistently, over and over again. We as dentists, we are just doing the best we can to treat people, but there's so much more to learn when it comes to professional customer support. I'm not talking about just being nice to patients. I'm talking about professional customer support. They have that experience. Hospitality know-how, they have it. Financially driven diagnosis, so they make decisions to make more money with the treatments, right? When I say this is an advantage, it's a financial advantage, not necessarily an ethical advantage. On the other hand, when you talk about successful, independent, great dentists, what are the things that I feel like as soon as you own more than 3 practices, all the way to 500 practices, you lose these advantages? Relationship with patient, there's no way it's the same, period. Done, over. And you need to empower that. You need to leverage that. You need to promote that. You need to make it so clear that you can go to an amazing restaurant that is part of a chain, but you will never get a 3-star Michelin experience. 3-star Michelin restaurants are not a chain restaurant. They cannot even open a second location. Why? Because Michelin knows that when you open the second, you're not going to keep the stars. You're going to drop the quality. It's exactly the same in dentistry. So relationship with patients, relationship with the team. You mentioned that, Joe. Relationship with the team. You lose that relationship as soon as you're not that Michelin 3-star environment anymore, right? You lose that. So you need to capitalize on that. You need to leverage that. You need to make it clear for the patient that that's a huge difference. It's a huge difference, right? Passion, care, skin in the game. How huge is that? How big is that? How much that makes the difference when you're polishing the distal of the prep on the second molar, right? When you have skin in the game versus I don't give a damn anymore. Or I do care about the patient, but I don't have the same skin in the game anymore, right? It's not the same. It doesn't matter how good clinician you are, how ethical you are, you lose that 100% extra touch, extra effort, right? Customized experience, quality of dentistry in general, not financially driven diagnosis is just the best for the patient. That's the main difference. And that's why we discussed, if I'm a patient, 100% I would prioritize going to a dentist that is a great independent practice owner. So that's my final conclusion.
That's a
Very
lot.
well. Jill,
I said,
love
my
it.
conclusion. Jill,
I can't
your
compete.
time. Just copy paste.
Yeah, copy paste that. But one thing about customer service, I think independent dentists can compete on customer service. And I think sometimes we are doing a better job than the DSOs. And maybe part of that comes from the part where we retain our staff. If we have all the systems in place that we should, I think we do a better job at retaining staff and customer service than a
100%.
DSO, because they have a revolving door of dentists. You might see a different dentist every time you come in.
But
Yeah.
when I say customer service, I say professional systems to do beyond that. When we have a one-to-one relationship, nobody can beat an independent dentist, right? You, your assistant, and the
Mhm.
patient, unbeatable. But everything you can do before the patient sits on your chair and everything you can do after they leave your chair, there's so many professional systems
Right.
that raise the level of customer support. That's the type of customer support I mentioned.
Okay.
That they
Yeah,
have a
like
little, we can learn that, we can
automated
implement
support.
that,
Yeah.
but they bring that expertise, right?
Yeah, no. So yeah, I think that educating the public is crucial in our mission, and that's something we're working on for this year. That's like one of our primary focuses. But before we do that, we really have to educate dentists about why this is important. And
How
all
people can
dentists are
join,
familiar. What?
how people can find the
Oh,
movement
how
and
they can find
join the
us?
movement. Yeah.
So dentist singular alliance.org. That will take you to our website. But right now on Facebook, we have a lot of conversations and different podcasts we're posting that people should listen to become more educated about these issues. And that's Alliance of Independent Dentists on Facebook.
I'm sure
Love
if you
it.
Google Alliance of Independent Dentists, you're going to find your
Yeah,
Facebook and your website.
hopefully it will be there. I think it is.
Yeah. And if you're listening to the podcast and you're driving and you're not taking notes, don't worry, we're taking notes for you. You can flip up to the notes and you'll see links to everything that Jill has mentioned and a lot of the points that we talked about during this podcast. Thank you both for being on. That was fantastic. I love this conversation.